Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is a live astrology class that I'm teaching for my Discord people, the people in my Discord server, the Cosmic Kingdom. And so this is the recording of this class right now. I wanted to share more on this concept that we talked about last week, which is the three ways in which planets and signs classify all of nature. And that's through the self, the not self, and then the relation between them, which we experience through our bodies. So we have the self, which is the inner world. We have the not self, which is everything outside, right, in the outer world. And then we have the relation between these two things, which is this third thing that the two create when they come together. So now I want to read this chapter for you. This is out of the book, The Art of Synthesis by Alan Leo. And we're on chapter 2 here, page 11, which is, the chapter is titled Planets and Consciousness. So it goes on and says, we've seen in chapter 1 that the universe in which we live may, from any man's point of view, be classified under three heads. Firstly, there is the self, which is always within, always hidden behind the veil of matter, that forms the particular kind of vehicle or body in which consciousness is functioning for the time being. This is true not of the physical world only, but of higher worlds also. For if the self be divested of the physical body, it'll be found to be clothed in what is called the astral body, or body of emotions and desires. And if this be removed, the mental body will remain. The naked self is never seen in any world. Its outer garment is all that is ever visible. Secondly, there is the not self, which from the point of view of any man is the rest of the universe, everything animate and inanimate that is not himself. This includes the bodies of other men and of animals, because from the man's point of view, these are no more himself than are stones or trees, and they must therefore be included in the class of not self. Such a class provides us with innumerable separate selves, each seeing the world from his own point of view only. And it is only after very lengthy experience that they realize their underlying unity with each other, and know that each apparently separate self is an aspect of the consciousness of the one supreme cosmic self. Thirdly, there is the relation between self and not self, and this is represented concretely by the body in which the man is functioning. This furnishes us with three different regions, each of great complexity and each capable of classification under planets and signs. Under self, we include the varying types of character, disposition, temperament, and states of consciousness innumerable, all characteristic of planets and signs and their combinations. Under not self are classified the hosts of things, places, and phenomena of the various kingdoms of nature, mineral, vegetable, animal, and human. Under the relation or body are included medical, physiological, and physiognomical astrology. The second and third of these groups have received an undue share of attention from astrologers in the past, the first having been confined to ordinary descriptions of character. It is only in recent times that the importance of the astrology of the self, with its varying powers and states of consciousness, has been recognized, and attempts have been made to develop it. So I'll continue on here. We now pass on to note that just as one universe manifests the three aspects of self, not self, and the relation, so the one self shows three different aspects in the world. It goes out towards the world and affects changes within it, thereby evolving capacity for action or volition, the first aspect of consciousness. It experiences agreeable and disagreeable, pleasant and unpleasant results of its various actions, and so evolves feeling, the second aspect. It observes, analyzes, classifies, and remembers the results of its various experiences, and so evolves the third aspect, thought or cognition. So these are the three aspects or departments of consciousness: cognition or thought, feeling or desire, and action or volition. And a glance at each will increase our knowledge of the relation of the planets to man. Religions teach that man was made in the image of God, and the obvious deduction is that if God manifests as a triunity, man made in his image must exhibit the same fundamental triplicity. These three modes of consciousness are in the human self what the divine three are in the Creator, and in each case the three are only modes of one. Their basic unity must not be forgotten. All three are, of course, present in every person, but it is quite the exception to find them equally developed. In most people, one of the three is much more prominent than the other two, and the result of this is to furnish us with three types of character. three typical men: the man of action, the man of feeling, and the man of intellect. So, A, action or volition. This mode of consciousness shows itself in the movements of the body, especially of the hands and feet and other parts, whereby changes are brought about in the outer world. Things are done, actions are performed. This is generally considered under the head of volition by Western writers because the essential part of it lies in the effort of the will, whether strong or slight, which starts the action and without which the action would not be conscious and purposive, but merely reflex, like the movements of the hands or head of a sleeping person. The man of action is the practical man of affairs. He may or may not be intellectual. He may or may not be possessed of strong feelings. He lives his life in action, in doing rather than feeling or knowing. To him, a thing is real and important insofar as it can be carried out in action, can be put into practice, and he is apt to fancy that both the other types of men may be dismissed as unpractical, and that he himself is the only person of real consequence. This class, of course, has numberless grades within it: the laborer, the skilled worker of every description, the businessman, the soldier or sailor, the statesman, and so on. But they are all executants, doers. In the average man of today, action is associated with consciousness functioning through the physical body. This does not mean that action is impossible when man is using one of his inner bodies, the astral or mental, for all modes of consciousness can be exercised in any of the bodies by the fully evolved man, but only that action is more characteristic of the physical world. It is also associated with the earthy element and with cardinal signs. And probably that sign which combines these two characteristics, namely Capricorn, embodies deliberate and purposive action better than any other. Opinions may perhaps differ on this point, and also on the further point as to which of the planets predominates most in action, but it seems likely that Saturn, the ruler of that sign, may claim this distinction, unless it be given to Mars, which receives exaltation therein. Okay, so action is most closely associated to the earth element signs and to the cardinal signs, and Capricorn is that sign which is cardinal earth, both cardinal and earth. And Mars, planet of drive, the will, and action, is exalted in Capricorn, isn't it? So this is why by studying astrology, life starts to make sense in a way that starts to click symbolically within your mind. And symbols are everything in the physical world. Truth is expressed through symbol because it condenses down from the mental plane and it condenses into a dense form, which is a symbol. A tree is a symbol of something, and that something is an idea, a thought form of God. And as human beings, we reflect the same process, right? We go, oh, this experience means this to me, and that meaning is a sort of a symbol. And so symbols encapsulate meanings. That's why symbols are powerful. So symbols are how we truly communicate with our higher aspects, you could say. And when we study astrology, we're basically studying the symbolic nature of our reality, of consciousness, and of the relation between those two, between the world and the self or consciousness. So let's move on to B, to the second aspect of the self, which is feeling or desire. This begins in sensation, mere response to impacts from without, affecting consciousness through the five senses. Cancer. Afterwards, differentiates into the pleasant, unpleasant, love, hate, or emotional phase, Pisces. And finally shows as desire, Scorpio. Sensation is the undifferentiated raw material of this mode of consciousness, which under the influence of the centrifugal and centripetal tendencies becomes polarized as attraction and repulsion, pleasure and pain, love and hate. These are only the negative and positive poles of one and the same mode. They can apparently be separated, but are never wholly divorced. They ebb and flow in consciousness like the tides in the ocean, and the soul that is at one moment broken and crushed by painful feelings will at another moment be swept off its feet by a wild and uncontrollable rush of pleasurable feelings. Where the one exists, the coming of the other sooner or later is a certainty. Susceptibility to one means susceptibility to both. The man of feeling, although it would be better to take woman as a type and to class man under action, lives in the passions and emotions. He realizes himself better through the feelings and the senses than through thinking or doing. This type of humanity has many grades, from low to high. There are the very undeveloped who do not seem to themselves to live unless they are gratifying one or other of the senses or passions. There is the wide sphere of the affections and family and social life. There is the region of devotion, both humanitarian and religious. And there is that department of human nature in which the feelings tend to blend with the intellect in the imaginative life of poetry, music, and art. The higher states of evolution result in man gradually acquiring control of feeling in both its aspects. He masters completely the attraction of pleasant states of consciousness and the repulsion of unpleasant ones, and the result is threefold. He gains a calm serenity of mind that no assaults of either pleasure or pain, joy or grief can disturb. He develops universal sympathy because, having passed through all these states unshaken himself, he can respond to and sympathize with others who are still struggling. And he develops will through the efforts to control unruly feelings and desires. In the average man of today, feeling of all kinds is associated with consciousness acting through the astral body. Astrologically, it corresponds chiefly to water signs, as previously indicated, but it also manifests through planets in the fiery triplicity, which expresses an ardent, impulsive, enthusiastic temperament very different from the relatively more passively emotional water. The airy signs exhibit it rather in the form of intelligent, responsive sympathy or of the aesthetic faculty and imagination. Among the quadruplicities or qualities, which is cardinal, fixed, and mutable, the fixed signs express it as desire, and this is strong in Scorpio, fixed water, and Leo, fixed fire. This aspect of consciousness is so deeply rooted in human nature and shows itself in so many forms that it's not easy to mention a planet that embodies it solely or even preeminently, but probably Venus for feeling and Mars for impulse may be regarded as characteristic. No heavenly body can be said to be free from it. Saturn perhaps shows least of it, and yet even this planet has a reputation for expressing sad emotions. Uranus can display it as an energetic impulsiveness on occasions. Jupiter possesses social humanitarian qualities and the sense of beauty. Neptune has very close affinity with this side of human nature. The moon gives domestic feelings, and the sun generosity and the more positive feelings. Even Mercury, which at times seems wholly intellectual, can bestow a very sympathetic understanding. Now let's come to cognition, which is C, the third classification, cognition or thought. Reason, understanding, intellect, intelligence, wisdom, and other terms bearing various shades of meaning are used to cover this aspect of consciousness. It begins with experience of the outer world based upon evidence supplied by the five senses, just as is the case with feeling, but whereas the latter functions in terms of pleasure, pain, cognition compares, analyzes, synthesizes, classifies, remembers, and establishes relations, generalizations, laws, and principles. The man of intellect is that type in which knowing is more active than either feeling or doing. This class, like the other two, also varies greatly, proceeding from the ordinary man who is intelligent or fond of reading without originating new thoughts, up to the author, the man of science, the learned scholar, the original thinker, and the great philosopher. This is associated with consciousness acting through the mental body and with the brain. Astrologically, it corresponds chiefly to airy signs and to the mutable or common quadruplicity. The sign Gemini, which expresses these two characteristics, mutable air, and its ruler Mercury, have preeminent claims to represent this aspect of consciousness. So, now we're going to do something fun.